this is some low-hanging fruit, guys. I know, but I'm excited to talk about Apple and their experience yesterday and what that really means for us. There were a lot of really big things that happened. Looking at the chart, this is the beauty of technical analysis. These are some zones that I drew up months ago. I haven't looked at this stock since this blue line here, May 7th, when we gapped up due to earnings. These levels are levels that I've been watching really since July of 2023. So we've bounced as low as the 160s and popped as high as the 199s, touching around $200 once and then falling through. Was WDC the thing? Is this the thing that's really going to spur Apple into the stratosphere? Is this what we're going to see for immense growth? Maybe. This is an opportunity that I'm not super interested in buying right now. I had to talk about it because it's so hot, but technically it's super hard for me to buy immediately coming into this level that has been so intensely respected over the past over the past really year. It's been a crazy experience. But here's the breakdown. One, there were some really interesting things that were announced over at WDC. Principle of which is iPad now has this incredible technology. You guys won't believe it. It's this beautiful device that allows for you to do calculations without having to write them down. It is a really impressive system. They call it the calculator app. It's now on the iPad and everyone can use it. It's a really big deal, and it's going to change the way that we do computing. But in all seriousness, yes, they finally brought they finally did bring a calculator onto the iPad, and it was a big announcement, and it was way bigger than it needed to be. But the big thing, obviously, is AI. Apple Intelligence is the big thing that was driving the conversation during the WDC. Really, the benefit of it is it's a much more personalized system. So just like we get personalized ads from Google, now we're going to get a personalized experience with Siri, where Siri begins to learn a little bit more about who we are and the way that we use our devices. What does that look like? Well, there are things in the software that allows for Siri to do things like look into specific keywords and actually search across multiple apps. In this particular instance, for example, this person was looking for a specific book from a contact of theirs, and Siri was able to search through messages as well as email in order to find that book suggestion. A lot of the other stuff is kind of a novelty, like creating AI portraits of people and things along those lines, but Apple's all about convenience. Apple's all about giving you that one more thing that will cause you to think, do I need to upgrade this year? As David's talked about before on this channel, on this show specifically, people have been upgrading their phones less and less and less as the phones have become more and more expensive, and we've seen less and less features. This system, this Apple Intelligence, it's not something that's going to be available on the phone from a couple of years ago. The iPhone 14 is not going to have any of this data. The chips aren't strong enough for. So Apple said you have to have at least an iPhone 15 in order to make this stuff work. The iPhone 16, which is expected to launch somewhere in fall, probably in September, will have these capabilities and more. This is a magnificent reason for a lot of customers to come in and buy the iPhone. So there's a lot of interest there. In terms of the other stuff that's being used on the iPad and Mac, there are some practical applications, but the most exciting part of this is one, Apple's finally introduced something that feels more like Apple. It feels a little bit more innovative. And not only have they built something a little bit more innovative with their Apple Intelligence, but they're using ChatGPT. They're creating a partnership with OpenAI in order to make sure that they have true AI support on the back end for what they call quote unquote world knowledge. So if you need a ChatGPT prompt, you can pop something into the search bar, use ChatGPT 100% for free, and then pay a little bit more for some pro services, totally Apple style. But the big thing here that we have to remember is Apple makes their money driving from services. They make their money from the sales of products, and many of these products are a couple of years old, which means that a lot of Apple owners that have been waiting a few years, maybe they weren't impressed with the new iPad, maybe they weren't impressed with the iPhone 15. This could be a good reason for them to step in and make some sales. And it's a good reason to think that Apple finally is finding a way to move forward. Now, you guys know me. I would be remiss if I didn't show you a little bit of their financials. Surprise, surprise, Apple makes money. I don't know if you knew, but Apple makes a lot of money to the tune of billions of dollars. When you're looking at the actual amount of money that was made um, just this past, this mission is measured in 6 months. So for 2024, April 2023 here, we're seeing $54 billion. We're seeing $57 billion in net income. It's an incredibly healthy company. When we're looking at liabilities, we're looking at 337 million and 352 million respectively over those two periods. They don't produce that much in the way of liabilities. They don't have much debt. They have an influx of cash, and they seem to always have an influx of cash. The last reading that we got, March 30th, 2024, they had 30, this is measured in thousands. During the quarter, they generated an additional $30 million. It's just sitting in the bank. Um, all in all, the cash generated by operating activity is sitting at $62 million. So they have an incredible amount of, I'm sorry, this is billion with a B. I shouldn't be saying that like that, but they have billions of dollars just kind of hanging out from a variety of their different investments, as well as the sales that they're able to produce. It speaks a lot of confidence when you're looking at a company and you can see nothing but dollars and cents, dollars and cents. The question really is, can they break through this 200 level by having some really exciting kind of growth like this? There are some negatives to talk about, as always, with this kind of opportunity. Elon Musk has come out and said that he's going to ban Apple if they use OpenAI
I got
in
some
their
thoughts
new
on that too.
iPhones. Please.
So what a freaking hater. All right, number one. So we talk about like this whole thing. I think at the end of the day, um, I think Tesla's a good company to make a good product, right? But this is we go back to like this is the problem with Tesla, right? Like, bro, why are you worried about like what they're using or what they're not using? Who's been one of the staunchest just defenders of cell phone privacy out there when it comes to your cell phone data and what the government can even do with it? It's been Apple for a long time. And what Android users typically hate about Apple is what? How locked down their phones are.
Yep.
Like, that's my problem with this whole thing. And like, for all his success, got it. He's sitting where he's at, and I'm doing the show from where I'm doing it from, and I hear it and I understand it. However, why would you come out and poo-poo the whole thing and get mad and sit there and say, well, I'm just gonna ban, like, I thought you were all about freedom and everything else. And I think and at the end of the day, this is the kind of stuff that kind of happens in these in this competition. And this is why this is part of the reason why Tesla's share price continues to suffer, because he can't get about he's like so distracted. And so we go back to, well, he wants a quarter of the company. He wants control of a quarter of the company so that he can be focused on Tesla, so that he cares enough to make Tesla a good company. Like, are we kidding? And then now you're worried about what Apple's doing.
It's
I'm
ridiculous.
sorry.
It is.
I was literally just sitting there like I saw that yesterday. I'm like, what the heck is this dude doing? And why does he care?
It's unfortunate, man. I would be remiss if I didn't at least bring it up. I thought it was hilarious. There's a lot of crazy nonsense, and on the other side, some more negative news. Kramer has
Oh
recently
no.
come out and said that he's
Oh,
bullish
time to short
on
it.
the equity. So that doesn't speak a lot of confidence to me if Jim Kramer is buying it. But the
Oh
core of
no.
the core of the conversation is really centered around this idea that Apple needs to start showing some technical strength. I want to buy this thing, guys. I really do. I think that Apple is a beautiful company. I think that Apple produces the prettiest products in terms of the UI experience. I get a
Yeah.
lot of people love their Samsung, their Microsoft, their insert whatever you love here. When you hold an Apple product and you scroll through, it's always seamless. It always flows incredibly well. As a tech nerd, I adore the products. I use the products. I love it. However, as a trader, just because we have some news that is centered around AI, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to see aggressive pops. On the other, quite the contrary. As soon as everything started coming out, the equity started performing really poorly. You could argue that this is a rejection of this level and that you can get short here. Am I getting short here? Absolutely not. Generally speaking, we had to see a little bit more time be spent up here in order for us to start seeing shorts. As you guys can see, we consolidated up around this range from July 17th to around August 2nd. So that's a little bit over 2 weeks of consolidation before we saw real strong downside movement. The same is true here. We saw roughly 2 weeks of consolidation and strong downside movement. Only this last touch early January did we really see a very quick response here. We haven't seen just 4 or 5 days respond in the downside aggression like this since this time in January. I don't like also the fact that from a technical perspective, we've hit this level so many times and we've bounced off it so many times. How many times is this thing going to work to the downside? The long and short of it is Apple AI is fantastic. Apple makes a ton of money. They're a magnificent company, but I'm not buying it because they're right at the 200 level. They haven't broken through that ever. The equity is struggling immensely at this 200 level, and it looks like we're starting to reject. If, underline if, star if, circle if, we start to show some strength, we reject this VWAP and start to see multiple closes, not just one or two, multiple closes over this 200 level, then I will raise my cost basis and I will start buying more of the equity. But for today, not buying.